Alright folks, this video we're going to install the i9-12900 and I think I'll put the Peerless Assassin 120 SE CPU cooler in here. So let's get started. Popping this open. Notice the triangle here on the plastic cover. This is my mortar, MSI mortar B660M. Just so you guys can see if you're able to. I know the lighting isn't the best. Drop that in there. And let me rotate this. You know, I had so many complaints about me having motherboard directly on the granite countertops, and I can't tell you that I'm really that concerned about the motherboards, but I am a little concerned about the granite countertop getting scratched up and what my wife would do to me. So I listen to you guys. There's some protection between the motherboard and the countertop. All right, popping this off. So if it doesn't come like that, just go ahead and use your hand. And wow, that one was really on there, folks. We'll make sure this end is up and under there, and drop that down and around. So on there nice and tight. Now let's see what we have for hardware that have this back piece. Now if you were going to do, you know, more of a permanent installation, you would rip this off. I'm not going to, because eventually this will go back in the box, and you never know, we may end up selling it. So that guy fits in there like so. And when I say we might sell it, yep, and of course it pops out, right? This will drive you nuts. Oh, look at that. Bam. When I say I might sell it, basically what that means is I don't hold on to everything forever. Now you would notice, if you saw my CPU cooler collection, we have a ridiculous amount of CPU coolers. Now the question is, folks, how this bracket's going to be oriented. Is it going to go on here like this? And at least with this one, you can tell the post has to stick up. Unlike some of these where you sometimes wonder, did you put it on the correct way? And when I say that, I think of my recent time with the Ice Giant Pro Siphon, which has a bracket like that, except it's got a hole in it instead of a post. Alright, so here is our CPU cooler. We want it to be oriented like this, right? So we can keep that in the background for everybody to see, but this needs to be oriented like this. And this is one of those designs where you kind of cringe, because if it just had a threaded post coming up out of this thing, it would be so much easier to work on. And so you can tell that we may have issues with this. Instructions anywhere. The question is whether to take the front hole or the back hole, right? And that's where this thing gets aggravating. Why they don't just put one hole in here for LGA 1700. Alright, so we're going to assume it's the back hole. There's a good chance it will be the front hole, right? Now, it isn't uncommon to install one of these CPU coolers, and as you're doing it, find out that you don't have clearance. When that happens, folks, that is aggravating. Alright, so it's on there. Some of the CPU coolers, the screws will slide in a line there, but I honestly don't think those are. Now, as it last, within the last month, I've kind of gone on a shopping spree for CPU coolers. We've had quite a few big CPU coolers, or yeah, that's not the word I'm looking for. Quite a few CPU coolers that do an outstanding job of cooling the likes of the 10th, 11th, 12th gen. And the question is whether they will do that great on 13th gen, and as we found out, only the AIs are really good for the benchmarks. So let's slide this over. Now, this motherboard, folks, we're doing the installation video. We might put a 13th gen in it. You know, maybe you might say I'm milking this motherboard in that aspect, but may do 2 installations. One with a 12th gen like this one. Maybe a, right now we only have the K-type 13th gens. And so this isn't an ideal board for that, but we may do that. Alright, so that's in. Now we need some thermal paste. I'm going to use Thermalright. They've included it. And I kind of like doing the 3-line thing nowadays. Wow, except this stuff's so thick, folks, it doesn't even want to really spread. So I do that, and then I do a bit bigger amount in the middle. And voila. Now this CPU having a lower TDP, this cooler's probably a bit overkill, but if you do increase the power limits, you may find that it actually needs a good CPU cooler. Alright, so they're on there. The big thing is getting these lined up. You want to get a few threads on one side and then the other. And at some point, you can just crank it. Oop, and this side is not actually lined up, folks. Oh no. Alright, so finally it's on there. The other side's actually... So the reason I do a few threads and check it, it gets really hard to do the other side if you don't do that way. And here, I actually screwed up, folks. I thought that both sides were on there. It made it a lot harder to get the other side down, but they're down now. Now this used to be my favorite CPU, folks. Then I got both 13th gen i5 13600KF, i7 13700K. Both those CPUs appear to be better than this i9. Depending on what thing you look at. I think even Cinebench R23 score was higher with the i5 13600KF. The i7 absolutely blows it away. Alright, so we've got that. Now we just got to put our fans in. Grab those out of the box. We'll need 4 fan clips. You can find 4. Right, so I put this in the box previously. I had these attached. So that's a 4-pin into a basically 2 4-pins into 1 4-pin, all right? So we will install that in a bit. Now with the CPU fan, folks, intake side, exhaust side, okay? We want both these going the same way. And when we look at this, we want air flowing in this way, flowing through here, flowing into this fan, and then flowing out. So that means these fans need to look like this, okay? Where they're both, where the intake side is on this side. So I'm going to drop this down into here, just to get it out of the way. And then we will put this one on. Now, if we look at this, we need to put a RAM in, okay? So let's do that. I'll put some better RAM in here. This stuff sits really low. This is 3200 megahertz RAM, not overclockable, so the base speed is 3200. It's rather expensive compared to the other stuff that you can get to run, that you can overclock up to 32. Alright, so we got that in. And then we want that to look like that. So we can actually just sit that on top of it for now. We're going to hook this in. You could do both sides at once, or you can just do one side. And voila, that's in. And I'm coming in, get this side. Easy day, right? Sometimes these things are not that easy. Especially when you're trying to do this in a really small case. If you're doing it outside of the case like this, much easier. Alright, so middle fan. Middle fan might be a good idea to do both of them at the same time, but I'll show you why it's probably a good idea to do that, because guess what? Look how hard it is to get in here and get this one. But if we try hard enough, we can do it. So that's that, folks. And pump fan. So here is your CPU fan. And guess what? It would have been easier to install this before we did this. And I'm kind of doing this blind. All right, I have to grab some light. You do not want to break your pins, so be patient. And voila, it's in. You want to do something with the wiring, right? Use some ties, get that straightened up. All right, so M.2, I've got a bunch of those. Now, folks, you'll want to put your M.2 under the heatsink, at least the one that has the operating system. You'll want to remove these little things here. I'm trying to keep this one relatively new. You know, this one will work just fine though, to be honest with you. In the box is the extra post there. So you would install that and put your M.2 in, rotate that, and it'll lock the M.2 in place. We are not going to do that part in this video though. This concludes, this is basically a partial install, and we're going to run some videos on this. And you can see that middle CPU cooler is sitting high. I just noticed that, so we want to drop that down a little bit. There you go. Now, folks, now we're happy with that. All right. Thanks for checking out the video. Please like, please subscribe. Thank you.